Hey guys, welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. And today we have something very juicy, something you can consider a true Star Wars leak. If you've been following my channel religiously, then you know I've been covering anything that comes out concerning Ahsoka Season 2. We don't know much information at this point, but at Star Wars Celebration in just over a month's time, there is an official panel, so I expect we will hear some updates there. But in the meantime guys, we have something massive for Ahsoka and the Dave Filoni movie. And I should just clarify, because sometimes when I say Dave Filoni's movie, some people think I'm talking about the Mandalorian and Grogu. I'm not. That's the one by Jon Favreau. I'm talking about the Dave Filoni movie, which a lot of fans think might be the Heir to the Empire adaptation, and the one which I assume is quite a few years away. That being said, there is quite a bit of evidence Dave Filoni has already started planning it. In a deleted video from last summer which has just resurfaced, during a recreational game of tennis with one of his friends, live-action Ezra Bridger, Eman Esfandi, spills the beans on filming plans for Ahsoka's second season and Dave Filoni's film. There are some theories circulating that Eman was just messing with the fandom, but in light of new information that we do know about, some of what he said tracks and is accurate to the filming schedule for the show. When you play the video, it's kind of difficult to make out everything he's saying, but the transcription is fascinating. Here's what he tells his friend. Dave was saying the movie is mostly me, and they're starting season 2 with me. I have 2 big fight scenes. I go to London and have like 3 months of stunt training, so they're gonna give it all to me, as opposed to the 3 weeks I had last time. Now this is really significant, because it means Dave Filoni has plans to make Ezra Bridger, who is now home, the center of the movie, and Ahsoka Season 2 starts with an Ezra fight scene. And you know, it's kind of like what fans said when Ahsoka came out, it really is Star Wars Rebels Season 5. And I can imagine back in the known galaxy, Ezra, Seb, and Hera are gonna do their best to get Ahsoka and Sabine home. Last time it was the other way round. Sabine was trying to get Ezra home. And I also just want to say guys, and I don't know if you remember this, but I reported the rumour that Ezra Bridger might be in the Mandalorian and Grogu as well. And considering the Instagram video of Eman Esfandi is rather old at this point, maybe he was talking about the Jon Favreau film. And even though Eman specifies Dave, Filoni is CCO and co-creator of the Mandoverse, so I think it's a given, even though he's not the director, that Filoni did have input on that film as well. But I definitely think the Ahsoka Season 2 stuff is legit, because filming is going to take place in the UK. And you know, as a Star Wars Rebels fan, as a fan of the first season of Ahsoka, this is really good news. We only got to see a couple of fight scenes with him in the first season, so it's really encouraging there is so much more to come. Now, I thought back to some of the interviews Dave Filoni gave before the first season. Something he said he wanted to bring back to Star Wars in a poetic way is the master-apprentice dynamic. We saw it with Ahsoka and Sabine, but if Ezra Bridger is going to play an important role in both Ahsoka's second season and his movie, is he setting up Ezra as Jacen Syndulla's master? Jacen obviously has the Force. It was implied on Cetos. I think he's going to do a parallel between Master and Apprentice in the known galaxy with Ezra and Jacen, and then on Peridea with Ahsoka and Sabine. Those could be 2 simultaneous subplots, which parallel each other. Continuing Jacen's story, which I think was always the plan, also gives Kanan Jarrus a wider legacy. But keeping in line with this progression from Star Wars Rebels to live action, I think doing more with Jacen is the most obvious choice. And knowing Dave, I can 100% envision a scenario where Jacen re-emerges further down the line during the Rey movie, or Simon Kinberg's trilogy. Is he going to mirror Jacen from the expanded universe and turn to the dark side? I have to say I'm a bit surprised that Dave Filoni's going to have him play such a prominent role in the movie, but at the same time I'm not complaining. I'm also hoping, just like Ahsoka in Book of Boba Fett, he meets Luke. In other major Mandoverse updates, Giancarlo Esposito says, if you were hoping Moff Gideon survived the events of The Mandalorian's 3rd season, you're probably right. However, he confirms he is not going to appear in The Mandalorian and Grogu next summer. Once again, Giancarlo Esposito is not convinced that Moff Gideon is truly dead. There's more road for him, he says. In a brand new interview with Empire magazine, he confirms that while he thinks Moff Gideon could resurface in the future, he is not in The Mandalorian and Grogu. In the past, Esposito has suggested that Gideon who died was one of his clones, and the real guy is still out there. He was a great villain, but it's time to focus on some other members of the Shadow Council. Maybe if Giancarlo Esposito is brought back, he could play one of the surviving Gideon clones, because at the end of the day, I do feel as though his story was wasted in the 3rd season, and it'd be ridiculous to show a man who cloned himself in the dozens, and then he never appears again. Fans assumed the one who's dead is a clone, because he didn't have the mustache. Whatever form it takes, if they ever decide there is space for more Moff Gideon, I hope it's near the end of the Mandoverse. They shouldn't do it straight away. They should give us a break from him. Focus on some of the other villains. And who knows, maybe Gideon is going to be the canon version of Luke. I'm talking about Luke with 2 U's. And maybe the surviving clones are hijacked by Thrawn and used as a weapon. But the Mandalorian in Grogu needs another commanding, charismatic presence. I think it's going to be Johnny Coin's remnant. But we need someone as stoic and evil as the client from the 1st season, Werner Herzog. I know the character is dead, but I'm just using him as an example of the kind of villain we need for a movie like this. And that's obviously going to be subjective, but I have to say I miss the original tone of this show. I want them to get back to the space western roots of it. That's when the show really thrived. I want to see the dark, twisted side of the remnant. I want to see how far they'll go to pursue their goals. And all of the Gideon stuff, in season 1 and 2 was really fantastic. They were building up to what we assumed was a precursor to reviving Emperor Palpatine, but that was the big twist. He wasn't using Grogu's blood for Project Necromancer, but instead for his own clones. The cloning subplot was a big red herring. And so the question is, have we seen the last of that? Well, let's take a look at how Star Wars fans reacted to this update. This person says, hopefully the movie is the last we see of Mando too. Oh, I think that's a bit harsh. There was certainly something of a creative decline in the 3rd season, but personally, and this is just my opinion, I wouldn't give up on Mando. I still have hope they can bounce back. Moff Gideon should be the Terminator of Star Wars. He should somehow always come back, just a bit more damaged and deranged each time. I do quite like this idea, it's rather intriguing, but they have to strike a balance. He can't just be the main villain for every single season, but I'd love for him to come back in something like Dave Filoni's movie. That could be the twist to bring the show full circle. Grogu defeated him. If there's any story left, it's the fact the crystal that powers the Darksaber is intact. A new hilt must be built for a smaller hand. Now that would be an interesting use of a MacGuffin. To repurpose the Darksaber, it comes back in a new form. But is Grogu going to be the one to use it? That's what this person suggests. And it goes back to an old theory that Grogu is going to be the next Mandalore, the next Tar Vista, combining his Force abilities from his Jedi training with being a Mandalorian. And when we find him in the Mandalorian in Grogu film, he's a Mandalorian apprentice. So he still has quite a way to go and a lot to learn. If we're doing another story with Gideon, it better be his past. And it got me thinking about something which I don't think Lucasfilm is going to do, but imagine if Gideon appears earlier in the timeline in Andor Season 2. He was once part of the ISB. Imagine if he shows up as a colleague to Dedra Meero. He's a cool character with a great actor, but I feel like they keep wasting him each season. When you think back to the way Moff Gideon was first established, all of the promise and potential to his story arc, and then think of the way it finished. Wasted potential. And that's the reason there is a part of me that wouldn't be too upset if they decided to bring him back. Could one of his clones complete his work? Rebuild the next generation of Dark Troopers? And this person suggests there is a space for Gideon in animation, again, earlier in the timeline, during the Clone Rebellion show, if they announce it at Celebration.